guys, and welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be going over our 2025 emergency funds. So this is part of my 2025 annual budget setups. I've already set up my 2025 budget and my 2025 sinking funds, so definitely go check those out if you haven't already. The budget planner that I'm using is my very own Sara Murray Stickers Humble Beginning Budget Planner for 2025. I do have a link down below as well as a discount code if you're looking for a budget planner for 2025. We are shipping them extremely fast, especially if it's purchased on its own. So definitely go check it out. Again, a perfect gift if you're looking for something to purchase for a budget lover or someone who needs to start budgeting. I feel like it really has everything that you need for a budget and so much flexibility for like with the extra pages and everything. So again, definitely check out those prior videos. Definitely check out the link if you're wanting to pick up a budget planner. We want to continue offering the budget planner, but we do have a lot of them left in stock. So definitely, again, check out the link, purchase one if you haven't already, and send them to friends and family. Okay, so I'm gonna start off by just kind of making it cute, and I think I'm just gonna be simple with it and put like a little flag up at the top, maybe as well as a little icon. And I think I'm just gonna do this little check mark because we are checking to make sure that our emergency fund is sufficient for 2025. So if you guys are new to budgeting, new to emergency funds in general, an emergency fund is really an amount of money that's set aside exclusively for emergencies or unforeseeable events. It should be anywhere from like 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, and these expenses are going to be like bare bones, no frills type of expenses. And you'll see that as I'm going through. Some of these items are, in my opinion, like a subjective thing where like my bare bones expenses may not be the same as yours, and that's completely okay. You have to keep in mind with budgeting, it's very personal. I know me, I know my family, and the way that you may do things may be completely different than the way that we do it, and that's totally fine. So just kind of keep that in mind. As I'm going through, you may be like, well, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't do that, and that's fine. When you're doing yours, just kind of keep in mind the way that you would do it, and don't worry about the way that we're doing it. Again, there's lots of things that you can wiggle around, and in a true emergency, I'm sure we would really cut back on a lot of these things if we needed to. But in my mind, I would rather be overestimating some of these expenses rather than underestimating them, if that makes sense. Okay, so we are going to go expense by expense and put in what the monthly amount is and what the annual amount is. You can definitely do the 3 to 6 months, but just from like my prior experience and my pre-work that I did to get to be able to fill this out with you guys, I know that what's really important for me is the monthly amount and the annual amount. We do have an emergency fund set up. We do keep it in a high yield savings account. I will have the same bank that we use down below. We use Ally. I'm not sure if they do like a referral thing, but regardless, I'll have a link down below if you want to sign up. We keep our emergency fund in there. We've had it for about 4 or 5 years, and we earn a really good amount of interest. For a very long time, we just let that interest build up and we just left it there. But now we actually use that interest as extra income in our monthly budget, just so that we can put more towards our financial goals. Our financial goals right now are paying off our mortgage, so it's definitely helping with that. But I figured I'd mention that we do keep it in a high yield savings, so it's not just sitting there, because our emergency fund, as well as a lot of people's emergency funds, can typically be quite a bit of money. So you don't want it just sitting and not making any interest, if that makes sense. So first is our mortgage. So we do have a mortgage. We are paying it off aggressively, and hopefully in a few years when I'm filming this video, we no longer have an emergency fund expense line for mortgage. Our current monthly mortgage amount without any extra interest, without any extra principal payments, is $1,900 $82.81. The amount that you guys typically see is our mortgage payment plus an additional principal payment, but because this is like worst case scenario, I'm not putting that in here. And that brings us to an annual amount of $23,793.72. You can definitely fill in the 3 and 6 months if it's important to you, but again, I just kind of know from my personal experience, I'm interested in the monthly and the annual amount. Next is internet. So our family needs internet, mostly Jason and I, because we both work from home. So for us to continue having our jobs, internet would be important. And our internet amount per month is currently $116. We could use hotspots. I don't know if that's like a long-term solution. So that's something like worst case scenario, maybe that's an option, but I'm going to say that internet's going to be crucial if we are in an emergency situation and we're still able to work. So that annual amount is $1,392. Next is cell phones. So again, going to need our phones in order to continue doing our jobs. And also if we were gonna do the hotspots, that's going to be $120 per month. And that is $1,440 per year. Next is life insurance. So this is a life insurance policy that I've had for a very long time. It's important for my family to continue having that because as time goes on, it's harder and harder to get life insurance. That's $42.55. And that ends up being a total of $510.60. This is one of those things that I know it's like definitely not something that is an emergency, but it is a commitment that I've made, and I will need to continue paying on a monthly basis, which is my laser hair removal. And that is $312.70. I believe I'm almost done with it. So in that case, like it would not be an issue, but regardless, again, it's a commitment that I made. So that is $3,752.40. Next is going to be electric for our home. And the way that I did it is I just took the average of what we spent in 2024. So this is not like representative of every month, but it's an average. So it should encompass pretty much all of our expenses. So we typically spent about $94.43 on electric, and that ends up being $1,133.21. And then gas for our home, that is $54.33, which ends up being $652.34. Next is going to be groceries. So obviously we will continue having to eat. And I did take out our eating out because in an emergency, we would just be eating at home. But our groceries would still be $1,000 per month because even with us eating out, it's $1,000. So I'm guessing that we would have to even cut back more than we typically do. And that ends up being $12,000 per year. I'm sure we can cut it back even more, but I think comfortably $1,000 would work. Household, so for like toilet paper, paper towels, that type of stuff, that's usually $200 per month, and that would be $2,400. Gas for our cars, again, we would still have to do the same type of drives that we typically do now. That's $175 per month. And that brings us to $2,100 for the year. And sorry, you guys can't even see what I'm doing for the annual amount. So let me move back a little bit. Okay, then we have activities for the girls. I know that we can cut back this quite a bit, but I'm gonna put in what we are currently putting in for their activities for sinking funds, and that's $250. And that ends up being $3,000 for the year. Again, worst case scenario, obviously we could cut that out, or like we can really make adjustments. But if we are in a situation where like we lose one of our jobs or someone's sick, I would like to keep the kids' lives as consistent as possible for the short term. Obviously long term, if whatever's happening is happening, it would change. But I know as a kid, anytime something bad happened, my life was just complete chaos and I had no consistency. So that's one thing that if I can control one thing, I want the kids' lives to stay as, you know, as much as possible the same. Again, I know worst case emergencies, maybe not gonna be possible, but I'm just kind of putting in what my goal and my best case scenario would be. Next is car insurance. So we would still have this expense, and I have been putting $215 as the amount. I'm going to be looking into getting a new provider and spending less money on car insurance. So hopefully this would be less, but that ends up being $2,580. A lot of these amounts that you're probably seeing are very similar to amounts you saw either in my budget or in my sinking funds. So it's kind of important when you're doing these steps to look at like your budget. I did a whole analysis in 2020, like for my 2024 expenses. I have a spreadsheet and everything that's available in my shop. Definitely go check out that video if you haven't, because I feel like it really prepped me and got me prepared for these videos and for setting all this up. But regardless, if you're wondering like how I'm coming up with these numbers, or like why do you think it would be this versus this, I did that whole analysis before I even started putting together a 2025 budget or a 2025 sinking fund, and all of those are kind of interconnected. So a lot of the amounts that you're getting for your emergency fund is going to come from your budget, from your sinking funds, and from the analysis of your spending for the prior year. So definitely check out those videos if you haven't already. I feel like it really is kind of one of those things that you should watch it in order, if that makes sense. But regardless, car insurance, $2,580 for the year. Then if you own a car, you'll also have car maintenance. So we do $100 per month, which is $1,200 for the year. If we own cars, we will also have car tags. And that would be $50 per month. Brings us to $600 for the year. Next is going to be clothes for the girls. I'm not including clothes for Jason and I because worst case scenario, we would not be having new clothes. We have clothes, we're adults, you rarely have to get new clothes, but the girls grow, and again, trying to keep their life as normal as possible. I don't want them to, you know, ever feel like we don't have the money to be able to purchase those things. Maybe what we would do is, you know, purchase more like resale clothing or something like that. But again, even like the clothes that we purchase, it's not expensive stuff. Like the girls get leggings from Target, and I think when I bought leggings last, they were on sale for $3 a pair of leggings. I feel like that's very, very cheap. Next would be our Costco membership. This is definitely something that we could consider getting rid of, but we do use Costco quite a bit to like buy stuff in bulk, and I think it would still be beneficial to have that, just savings wise. Tolls would be still something that we would need. That would be $20 per month and $240 for the year. Trash, obviously, we would still need for our home. That's $20 per month and $240. And water for our home, that's $50 per month and $600 for the year. And then the last thing is we do have a storage unit that we use for the business, and we would need to continue having that as long as we have the business. So that's $178 per month now, and that's $2,136. that's something that's kind of unavoidable. We have like the business within our home, and that has been just fine. Like, you know, in the past, we had a whole office space and that was kind of dedicated to that. But as time has gone on, we just realized that like we don't really necessarily need that space, but we did need to store a lot of the stuff that we had. So we use a storage unit, and worst case scenario, like until we are able to clean that out and sell all the stuff that we have in there, we would need it. So anyway, our monthly amount in terms of emergency funds would be $4,907.86. Our 3-month emergency fund would be $14,723.57. Our 6-month would be $29,447.13. And our annual amount for emergency funds would be $58,894.27. So with emergency funds, again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, typically when you hear about emergency funds, people say, okay, you're gonna want to have between 3 and 6 months of emergency funds. I think it's really important as time goes on to continue evaluating your emergency funds and seeing if you have the amount that like you would need in case of an emergency. So for us, we set an emergency fund back in 2020. And we've maintained that same amount throughout the years. We haven't adjusted it. And for me, I feel like as time has gone on, I've kind of realized more and more that like in an emergency, we would have to think about like worst case scenario as much as possible. So a lot of the things that we've had in the past are not necessarily things that we have anymore. There's definitely things within our emergency fund that we can cut out if there was really an emergency fund or emergency. But in reality, we have close to a year's worth of funds set aside, even given some of this stuff that like we could obviously cut out. So I feel comfortable where we're at, knowing that like if something really bad happened, we would be set, knowing our expenses here for quite a while. Obviously, there's going to be things that pop up. There's going to be, you know, random expenses. Maybe we would have like health insurance that we would have to worry about, or medical bills that we'd have to worry about. But in reality, like even with all of this stuff, we have close to a year. So I think we could figure it out. But that's something also to keep in mind. We have an HSA, so that definitely helps in terms of medical expenses. But you know, with emergency funds, it may be helpful if you're someone who's really worried, or if there's something like lingering that, you know, you're like, I don't know how this is gonna work out. Put together a couple different scenarios in terms of emergency funds. So you could do like, okay, if I lost my job, this is a scenario. If I got sick, this is a scenario. That type of setup. There are lots of extra pages back behind all of the other annual setups where you can do that and really put together all these different scenarios for, you know, if this happened, then this. That's something that I would suggest if you're a worrier and you're wanting to put together different scenarios for emergency funds. Anyway, that is it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely check out the links down below and pick up your own budgets. You can do all of these setups with me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.
You said that you needed me like a cargo